Welcome everyone to our new session of Nevsky Talks, series of lectures developed for foreign citizens who live in Belgrade and who want to learn something about Orthodox Christianity. Our tonight's lecturer is a very interesting person. He is an IT expert who lived in America for 2 decades.
20 years. Yeah.
20 years, yeah, 2 decades. Father of 3 children.
3, yes.
Yes. Man who was producer of one movie about Orthodoxy in America.
Yes.
Man with very strong ties with Mount Athos. Our brother Branislav Bubalo. And what's very important, man who personally attended the event of canonization of St. John of Shanghai in San Francisco. So he will tell us something about his life, his work, and his legacy. I'm eager to hear that lecture.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Father. In the name of Father and the Son and Holy Spirit, thank you. And may St. John help me today to say some few words regarding him. It's a great honor, and I hope I will do it with the humility because of a saint that probably is one of the greatest saints in Orthodoxy. He lived in our times, and why is he so interested is because he was one of the few saints out of all the saints in Orthodoxy. He's the saint that lived all over the world. So I will tell you a little bit about his life. Then I will give you a little introduction of how I got into knowing St. John. Maybe that's the proper way first. I went to U.S. As a musician. I was playing accordion for National Ensemble of Yugoslavia at that time. I traveled through the whole world, and then as a young kid, 18 years old, we traveled through the United States. I decided to go back, and then I went back to studies when I was 20, and then I was involved with sports, martial arts, same like Father Oliver. Series, I was really practicing a lot, and but in those times in U.S. Yoga and meditation was like really interesting, and step by step, after a couple of years, I found myself in something which I was really not planning to be, and then in some really amazing way, in my opinion, with the help of Saint John, Saint George, Sveti Georgi, which is my slava. We celebrate Saint George in our home. I was in some way saved and heard about the canonization of Saint John. At that time, I was 34 years old, and of course we were going to a church, a Serbian church, on Sundays, but that was not like really serious. It was like more like getting together with people. So then canonization happened, and there was like big change, huge change in my life, amazing change in my life, because when I walked into Cathedral of San Francisco, I realized in that moment that all my senses are fulfilled. Everything which I was running and trying to find in U.S., but couldn't find. I thought the happiness is in cars, in money, in business. I was running after business, in sports, in planes. I got a license for a small plane. Nothing accomplished. Nothing fulfilled my heart. And then when I walked in one day in the church, before the canonization, I felt that all my senses are fulfilled. I could see something beautiful. I could smell something beautiful. I could even taste. My heart was full. And then canonization happened. So now I will go back to the life of Saint John Maximovich. Saint John was born in 1897 in Kharkov. Unfortunately, that's the place where the special operation is going on right now, the city in Ukraine. That was called South Russia at that time. And he attended the imperial school in Kharkov, and after attending actually the military middle school, he went to university and he finished the law school of Imperial University in Russia. And then unfortunately, you know about the October Revolution and what happened, and many Russians had to flee because of the communists. And among one of the families that fled Russia was Saint John with his family. They came to Serbia. Actually, at that time was Yugoslavia. King Alexander was at that time, and they came to Belgrade. They lived in Belgrade, and Saint John signed up for theological university in Belgrade. So he finished university in Belgrade in theology. Basically, he came back to the roots of his family because several hundred years before that, his family emigrated from Serbia into that part of the world. For the ones that know a little bit of history, we had a big exodus from Kosovo and Metohija during the Turkish occupation, and one of our patriarchs, he took people up north, and some of them ended up in current Ukraine, eastern part of Ukraine. So that's the family that actually was also part of the Saint Maximovich, Michael Maximovich or Mikhailo Maximovich. So anyway, he finished the university in Belgrade and became a monk. He was ordained by a Russian church abroad, and it was the first time in history that the Russian church had its own church abroad. So Ruskaya Zagranična Crkva, or Russian church abroad. And it was ordained, or actually was permitted by our king to have their own church in Serbia. And that was probably the first time that life of St. John crossed, in a way, life of my family, because my grandfather was active member of a church in one town close to Zrenjanin, where Kikinda, it's called Kikinda, on the border of Romania and Serbia, and he was the president of the church council, my great grandfather. So Saint John Maximovich was actually teaching theology in that town, and they knew each other for sure. I didn't have a chance to ask him, my grandfather, because he passed away, but I'm sure that they knew each other. It was the same time. And then Saint John went to south of Serbia, to Bitol, it's called Macedonia, Bitol, and he also conducted school. He was working together with Saint Nikola Velimirovich. You probably heard about. I'm sure you heard about this wonderful saint and writer and poet. And so when people ask Saint Nikolai about whether there is a saint today or not, he would say yes. If you want to see a saint, go to Bitol and you will see Saint John. So I was asked to sit down and talk by sitting, but I should have stood up, because Saint John was, all his life was actually without going to bed. He was, believe it or not, he was a saint that actually never had never went to bed after he was ordained into a monk. So if you want to try to maybe imitate or try to be a little bit like saints, we should take a little bit of our effort in our life in that way. So anyway, Saint John, after teaching in Bitol, he went back to Belgrade, and then by his bishop, by Russian bishop Tikhon, he was asked to go to China, because at that time big part of Russians went to Shanghai due to revolution, in October Revolution, right? And he created a big Orthodox community. He had an orphanage, very big orphanages in Shanghai. Close to 2,000 kids were situated in this building. They went through, right, not at the same time, but it was like a total of about 2,000 kids that went through the orphanages during the time of St. John living in Shanghai. And one of the, or actually two of the people that lived in this orphanage, I had the opportunity to meet. So not only did I have a second-hand experience, I have a first-hand experience from people that actually have met and that spoke with St. John. And I will tell you about that also as well. One of my best friends was actually baptized by, in the U.S., in San Francisco, was baptized by St. John, and his name is Michael, because St. John is also called Michael by Archangel Michael. He received the name by Archangel Michael. So he was living in a very difficult time in Shanghai, just before the Communist Revolution, before the communists took over whole China. And then there was at one time there was a war between Japanese and Chinese, and they were in the middle of this this whole ordeal, very, very difficult to organize, and no food, and all these times St. John was very active in not only in his job as a bishop, but actually he was very good in management. He was very good in organizing and putting groups together, and actually solving all the small issues and big issues in the Russian community. And there were also Serbs as well at that time in Shanghai. When communists took over, they gave him a time notice, and they said, you need to leave China. You need to find your place, but you can't stay here as Orthodox. And they found place in Philippines. So St. John went to Philippines to one small place. I'm not sure exactly, Tababao or something like that. It's called on the river, or actually on the coast of Philippines, and in a very, very, I would say, poor environment with huts and living conditions which are really, they were really difficult living conditions, without the water, without food. They basically 5,000 people, 5,000 Russians went to Philippines to live in such place, which was exposed a lot to hurricanes, and you heard about about winds and rains in that part of the world. Anyway, during the time that St. John was living with his flock, no hurricane actually hit the island, because he would every evening, every day, he would go and he would bless the whole camp and go around the island, and nothing happened during that time. When they left next month, the hurricane came in and actually completely destroyed. If that happened during the stay of the community, probably there will be a huge amount of casualties, because the winds and the rain is tremendous in that island. Anyway, St. John, after the Second World War ended, he went to U.S., he went to Washington, and he went to Senate, and he was basically not allowed to go inside, but he was sitting on the outside on the bench, or he was basically waiting for senators, for 2, 3, 4 days outside. And as the senators would come out, he would say, we have a problem. We would ask your pleas for help. because we would like you to honor the passports or the visas for our people to come into U.S. And finally, they actually did that. And they gave, mostly due to, we believe, mostly due to prayers of St. John. And they were all accepted in the United States. So he went back to Philippines. They brought him to U.S. And most of the Russians came to San Francisco. Some in North California, North U.S., but most of them came to San Francisco. In 1954, I believe, he was then asked to go to France. So he became a bishop in France, and he lived in France, and he organized the Russian community in Europe as well as Belgium and so on, and then went back in, I believe, in 1963 or 1960. Don't take my dates, exact dates. You will be able to read it on the internet. I believe it was like 63 or 62 or 63. He went back to San Francisco because in San Francisco there was some issues with building on Gary Avenue. They started to build a beautiful church, and like any community, like we know among our Serbs, we sometimes cannot, you put two Serbs together and then you have three problems. So he solved all of that, and they finished the cathedral, beautiful cathedral, and then he continued serving in the cathedral. In 1966, on June 2nd, he passed away in I believe in Seattle, Washington, if I'm correct. And that was the day of finished of the life of St. John in this world, but the beginning of his holy life. Even during his worldly life, he performed many miracles. Some of them we know, and some of them are written, but probably many of them we don't. He would, for example, he was in Paris, and there was a lady in Shanghai who was very ill in the hospital. She was asking nurses to call St. John to come in and to help her. But they say, he's in France, the doors are closed, this is impossibility. And suddenly St. John appeared, and he gave her a Holy Communion, and she had a Holy Communion in the morning. She was well, and she was actually all well and good, and was ready to be discharged from the hospital. But what I like to tell you is more what happened to me, because you will hear from the first hand. This is, you can read many miracles, and I ask you, if you have a little bit of time, to buy a book, or there are many videos on the internet, on YouTube. You can read about St. John and see how wonderful this human being was and what he did. But going back to my life, I then in 2004, first time I learned about St. John, and I went to church a few weeks before the canonization. And then they told me, St. Branislav, do you know, we're getting ready for canonization. I said, I don't know, what is this? They said, well, that's when we have a sermon, we have actually a service where we honor someone to become a saint. We actually, that's called canonization, the date when you actually put someone into a saint. And I said, okay, I will, I definitely will come. But a couple days before that, I started to be very regular in the church, and the church was full, and suddenly there was a monk that came in from the altar, and he came straight to me. There was a lot of people in the church, and he said, young man, where is your cross? I said, I don't have a cross, sorry. When was your last time, when did you last time have confession? I said, I don't know what is that, you know. Okay, so no Holy Communion, no confession, no cross. Okay, I give you advice. Please go home, write all of your sins, and then come back tomorrow on this particular address, and you will actually confess all of your sins. Make sure that you write it every, and you will, you know, we'll put it on fire. You will, you know, burn the paper, and that's it. You know, you're done. Then you can continue with the Christian life. But this way, no, you can't. So I came back to this room right here, and this is my first time confession. This is the room where Saint John lived, and he said, you know, Father Seraphim said, you know, sit on this chair. And I sat, and he said, well, that's the chair that Saint John was sitting, and this is, you know, where you're going to confess. And I am from Mount Athos. I was abbot in Mount Athos, and I was kicked out from the altar because I didn't want to venerate the patriarch from Tsargrad. You know, he was asked actually to leave. Anyway, when I finished my first confession, Father Seraphim said, well, you know, is that all? I said, yes. Are you sure? And I said, well, he said, no, this is not all. This is not enough, you know. You need to be real serious. Please go home and write everything from the beginning of your life until today, all of your sins. Don't miss anything that you remember. Come back again tomorrow, and then we'll do it. And then, of course, I went back home, and I said, well, this is serious. I need a book, you know. So I took many papers, and I started writing, and went back to confession next day, and had a real confession. And the father was really happy, and then he gave me all the icons. He gave me a big, you know, brojanica, it's called. I don't know how you call it in English, but anyway, it's a, you know, for prayer rope, you know, with 100 from Mount Athos. He gave me that. He said, you know, keep this with you, and hopefully it's going to be on your for your savior. You know, you'll use it in the proper way. And then the canonization occurred on the 2nd of June in 1994. Thousands of people came from 2nd of July of 1994, and thousands of people came in from all over the world. The whole plane was booked from Australia. They came in. They came from Russia, from Europe, from France, and then basically police blocked the whole street of Gary Street, and the whole neighborhood was basically, you know, protected. And they had big monitors outside of the church because, you know, they couldn't accommodate all of the people inside. And I have to tell you, really, that this is one of the greatest moments in my life. Besides, not, of course, meeting my wife and having children. That's, you know, that's also those are the peak moments of my life. I met at that time a person called Jose Munoz. If you read St. John, you will probably get to this name. Jose Munoz was an interesting person who was from South America. He converted into Orthodoxy, and one day he went to Mount Athos, and he went to a small it was not a monastery. It was like maybe a monk's hut or a house. The monks were living, and he saw they call Kelia in Serbian, and he saw Mother of God on one of the walls, and he asked God, he said, please, you know, can you give me this as a present? But of course this is impossible. In Mount Athos you can't touch anything. Actually it's very you can't take it, you know. It's very forbidden, you know, to take anything out of Mount Athos unless it's in the store that you can buy. So the Iguman said, you know, no. The abbot said, you know, it's not possible. But during the evening, when he was sleeping, Mother of God appeared to Abbot. He said, you know, you need to give me this icon. You need to give to Jose this icon. So he wrapped it, and he ran to the boat, and he said, you know, this is your present. Please take it. So he took the icon. Police didn't stop him. He took it to Canada, and he, you know, was very happy. He put it on the wall and went to sleep. And suddenly he noticed a beautiful smell beautiful smell. He woke up and he saw on the wall Mother of God with the mirror. You know, you heard about, most of you know what I'm talking about, mirror dripping icon, right? Which science cannot understand what is it. And he called immediately the bishops, and they took the icon, and throughout the whole Orthodox world for the next couple of years he was taking it, and they were honoring the icon. That icon was on canonization of Saint John, and I had the opportunity to actually be in front of the icon. I can tell you that the feeling is like you are in between the earth and the heaven. You know, it's just something unbelievable. Of course, canonization was nice, beautiful choir, and everything. But this, like when you are actually approaching the icon with this beautiful oil mirror, actually that actually goes hundreds of meters around. That's something totally amazing. So that experience was for me something very special. I spoke with many times with Jose. And then Jose was unfortunately killed, murdered in Greece, and he is considered as a martyr, basically a saint. I don't know if they canonized him officially or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's a saint, if he will be a saint very soon. The icon disappeared, but the new icons of the same copy of the icon in Hawaii also started dripping mirror, and so now we have a copy of that icon. After canonization of Saint John, I was out of Serbia for many years. I was 14 years living in U.S. and I decided to go back finally to see but because of the war, there was like really difficult times. I went straight to Mount Athos, and I had the opportunity to meet also wonderful monks and I would say holy people in Mount Athos. Then I went to Serbia. When it comes to personal experience, me and Saint John, I can tell you that he's in my heart every day, and it's just like I feel it like part of my family, really. Mihailo is a man who was baptized by Saint John. We sang together in a choir of the Russian church. I was singing in a choir for about 3-4 years in San Francisco, going to Saturday and Sunday services. On Wednesday there was there was lessons regarding Orthodoxy. I would also participate in lessons. So I was like really active in that life, not being interested at all in outside world. Basically, I was just doing IT, a little bit of sports, and the church. That's it. That was my life for quite long time. Then I went, I came back to Serbia officially in 1999 during the bombing. That was like enough for me, enough of the West. I came back to Serbia. I lived here, and then one day, talking about how Saint John helped me personally. I had businesses, ups and downs like any business, and then one day during the economic crisis in 2009, we totally lost our business, and we were struggling. And then I said to my wife in 2013, I said, I crossed the red line. When that happens, I need to go back to U.S. to work. I was trying really hard not to do it, but this is it. Now I need to leave. But we were like really down economically. Like I had $100 in my pocket, and I flew to San Francisco. I landed. I said, what am I going to do? With $100, it's enough for a taxi and for one hamburger. That's it. So I called Misha, my brother, which didn't know anything about me, because he knew that I had a good business. I was paying for him tickets, bringing him to Serbia, taking him to Mount Athos, like really I did well economically. And I called him and I said, Misha, I'm in San Francisco. And the first word, first sentence, he said, Branislav, don't worry, I'm here with you, for you, everything will be okay. And I started basically crying, and I said, how did he know? He's not he's just a regular man. He's not priest or anything. And he said, Misha, I didn't tell. He said, don't tell me, don't tell me anything. Doesn't matter. Just I'm coming to you. Where are you? I'm at San Francisco airport. Come and pick me up. So he came and said, I'm in a really trouble. Even my computer broke. Everything that the only thing is my family is, thanks God, fine. And and so take me to San Francisco, to St. John. So he took me to St. John. I came to him and I said, St. John. You released me with a bag full of blessings, and now I'm coming back with a bag full of sins. Because obviously, if I didn't, I would have had a different life. I would have been a little bit more careful what I do. All right. And I said, just take care of my family, and I will take care of myself. Just make sure that my family is okay. I will do well. Don't worry. And then, Misha took me to a friend, and I started sending CVs, and in 3 days, I received a call from a company, from the headhunting agent, and also from the manager, which is like really unusual. Usually they, only headhunting agent calls you. But it's like, wow, this is like really unusual. They like really believe me, if the manager. And I said, you have an interview on Friday. So because there was like Russian friends, the guy that I was living with, he said, he called another friend. He said, hey, Sergey, can you please come over here? And I'd like to, introduce you to a friend of Branislav. So, Sergey came in and he heard that I'm from Serbia. He called me and said, oh, we love, Serbia, we're brothers and so on. What are you doing? He said, well, I'm trying to find myself now here. And again, after 15 years, I was out of U.S. for 15 years, and, I'm trying to now, find a job. But I received this call from Apple. I said, Apple? I said, yeah. In a pretty high position, actually. I was supposed to be almost like senior manager for whole iTunes. I said, there is a table in one company which is empty right next to me. You know what that company is? I said, no, it's Apple. I'm sitting on the table right next to that table which is empty, and that's the table that needs to be filled with that position. He said, see you on Friday, 7 a.m. See you on Friday, 7 a.m. at Apple. He took me, and we went. I had interviews all day for 7 hours, and after the whole day passed, they said, Branislav, you got a job, which was like unbelievable. Like totally unbelievable. So many people in front of me, from Stanford, from Yahoo, from Google. It was like mission impossible. So I called my wife. I said, honey, I got a job. He said, please, no taxi. I said, no, it's not a taxi, although, I wouldn't mind. I became a director of a huge portion of Apple, it's iTunes at that time. And he said, well, do you have a calendar with you, church calendar? I said, yeah. Can you take a look at it? When are you starting? I said, Monday. He said, have a look. And I looked, and it was the 2nd of July. Of course, I started crying, and it was like, that's it. So I went back to St. John and said, what can I say? This is it, And, I started, it was like a really, really beautiful ceremony. I was standing in the church, and then the Father Peter, who was my spiritual father in a Russian church, he said, "Come, Branislav, come in." I said, "It was full church. Come." And he said, let's carry St. John to the middle of the church. It was like all monks and the priest and myself. So he saw my love and respect, and he gave me this honor. So I was like really, really honored with it. So I'm telling this is a first-hand experience. When I was in San Francisco one time, there were many things, but something I could remember now. I was living in Berkeley, which is like, for you that know a little bit of a Bay Area, you have San Jose and San Francisco, and then Berkeley is on the other side of the bay. Huge bridge is connecting Berkeley University, right, and San Francisco. And then when you are leaving from when you're going from San Francisco into from Berkeley into San Francisco, you have like 8, 12 or 20 lanes, I don't know exactly, many lanes that actually you need to stop and pay the tickets to cross the bridge. So one no thing to do is to forget your wallet and not to pay the ticket. That's, you know, that's something you never do. Why? Because they stopped everyone. Police comes in, you know, they basically, people are screaming at you, yelling at you. It's like a hell, right? That you will never do it again, right? So, you know, like I'm going to liturgy Sunday, all happy, approaching the pole, you know, need to pay. Suddenly, I forgot my wallet. Oh my God. Just like, you know, my temperature said, now I know what's going to happen. And I come over and the guy, you know, on the who is taking the tickets, he said, please go, you know. I said, what do you mean go? He said, the guy in front of you paid. I said, you know, guys, like in million cars, in million passes over the bridges in US, never will happen that somebody in front of you will pay a ticket for you and behind. You know, I don't know, maybe he saw my face and how, you know, scared I was, maybe that's, but anyway, I went to liturgy, I said, you know, this is what happened, and, you know, this is just one of the things that many things that St. John performed. I saw a lady coming from the street, completely, was like destroyed by drugs, completely. It was like a ruin of a human being. And she came and she came in front of the St. John, and after about a couple of months, I just saw the image of the lady. In a couple of months, I saw in a church. She converted into Orthodoxy and started like being a human being, normal human being, like living Christian life. Regarding my spiritual father, maybe I can tell you something also interesting, is that Saint Seraphim, Father Seraphim, was living for a while in San Francisco, then he went back to Jerusalem, and we were in touch every once in a while. He was like really getting old, and then one day I woke up and I said to him, I said, we're going to Jerusalem. And he said, what do you mean Jerusalem? I said, yeah, when? Tomorrow. Are you crazy? He said, yeah, we're going tomorrow to Jerusalem. I said, what? I need to see a Father Seraphim. I said, well, this is like, you know, I know you're crazy, but this is it. So I bought a tickets. We went to see Seraphim. He was already in bed. He was like really ill. And we took blessings. We spent a little bit of time with him, and we left. After 5 days, they closed Jerusalem due to COVID-19, and after 1 month, he passed away. So basically, you know, there was like he sent a message to come and see me and so on. So that's a little bit of experience and a little bit of history of St. John, which I wanted to share with you. If you have any questions, I don't want to go too long. Please ask me if I know the.
Thank you, brother. It was a very touching and inspiring story, you know. And we in the missionary department have also some kind of strong spiritual ties with St. John of Shanghai, because last year, on the 2nd of July, we started with our special program of Orthodox mission in Chinese language. Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
So we have some. So we have some kind of materials printed in Chinese language, and among prayers and the story about St. John of Shanghai in Chinese.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to tell you, St. John had such a big impact on the whole world. It's just totally amazing. I was last year. I spent a couple of months in U.S. I had one business, and I used the opportunity to actually make a little movie called Stopama Svetog Nikolaja Velimirovića, Footsteps of Saint Nikolai Velimirović. And mostly I visited mostly OCA Church, or actually American Orthodox Church. And Saint John was one of the persons who actually initiated this whole idea about giving Americans opportunity to have their own Orthodox church. It was Russian church before, and I can tell you the way how serious these people are when it comes to Orthodoxy, just totally amazed me. I lived in U.S. for 20 years, but when I back now, I went to some churches and I approached priests and I said, Father, I'm so glad that you're not aware of the power of the Holy Spirit that I feel you have it in the church, because this is amazing. It's pure heart. They went totally pure heart into it. They're very serious about it. They don't just come in and baptize. They basically prepare themselves for a year. They learn about Orthodoxy for a year. Then after, they go to services, and then after a year they actually get baptized. And all was most of it was effort of Saint John. Now they are saying, I don't have the concrete numbers, but they're saying between 4 and 6 million people are in Orthodoxy, and they had like 400,000 U.S. citizens. Nothing to do with Serbs. We're talking about just Americans. And what was also amazing is when you walk into the church, you see 15, 20, 30 catechumens, actually people that are preparing for baptism, right? So huge. There's a huge trend in Orthodoxy in U.S. Wonderful stuff. And the one man, or him, and of course some of the other Tikhon and some other saints are actually responsible for such things. So,
you definitely have two patron saints. One is Saint George, and the other is Saint John.
Yes, Saint George. Yes.
Okay, let's get some questions. Michael, my friend, his parents were actually from the orphanages in Shanghai. So Michael that was baptized by Saint John, I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Bordokov and Miss Bordokov and ask them about Saint John. And one of the questions was, of course, something that all of us are intrigued with, and we're all have a probably question mark how it's possible. Was Mr. Bordokov, is it possible that Saint John never slept for 40 years in bed? He never slept in bed. Maybe he slept. And he said, yes, I was his secretary. I never saw him in bed. He never had a bed. So that's one of the things that he took a vow. Saint John took a vow not to lie in bed ever until his end day. And nobody ever saw him in bed. Of course, they saw him in a chair. Maybe he would take a nap, or maybe he would. He slept 2 hours a day, just 2 hours a day.
Yeah,
sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours.
In a chair, but not in a bed. Not in a bed. And that was like first-hand experience from Mr. Bordokov. He told me, he said, yeah, I was his secretary, and I saw that we never saw him in a bed. He actually didn't have a bed. This is his room. There is no bed. That's what he lived. Only chair, and that's something really amazing. Anyway, yeah. So, anything you want to ask me regarding any subject?
We have here people from all around the world, from Australia, India, America.
From India?
Yes. Our brother from India.
Wonderful. Wow. You have some Orthodoxy in India as well?
No, not that I know. It's mostly Catholic.
Mostly Catholic.
I think down in the south is mostly Catholic.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And from where? From Australia? From
Australia is over there.
uh-huh.
America is over there. And Russia, of course. I'm sorry.
Mi možemo govoriti po-ruski, jestli udobno. Oh, that's wonderful, yeah.
So let's hear some questions.
Yeah. Maybe, Father, if you have something you want to ask.
Everything about that saint. It's
Yeah.
my Prislava.
Frislava, yeah.
So I would actually like to hear something about that event in 1994 of event of canonization. Can you tell us something about that event in details? Something that's specific. For example, who was present? Was there anyone from Serbian Orthodox Church?
Yes. We had priests from Serbian Orthodox Church. Well, one thing which was like to me really amazing at that time during the canonization was, first of all, the service was the church was open for 3 days non-stop. They didn't close it, and there was a prayer or complete. And then during the canonization, usually. This is a custom. Is they take the relics of Saint John and they take him around the block, the whole block. And then there was something like really interesting in the middle of U.S. You have Lithia, going throughout the whole San Francisco block, which is not small part. It's a pretty long actually. Maybe a half a mile is one side, and then the other side. So it would take time, and the police was making sure everything is in order. And you had several thousands of people going around. That's, to me, that was like something really interesting. Also, another thing was. Another thing was like which I mentioned when this icon of Jose was Bogorodica, or Holy Mother of God, was going. In San Francisco there is wind. There is a lot of wind, and but you could smell the icon from a long way. Even maybe like 40-50 meters. You can smell this beautiful something totally heavenly smell. What else I can tell you is that
What happened to the icon? What happened to that icon?
the icon was unfortunately lost, and but the
Stole it, or?
stole. Yeah, that somebody, basically Jose was murdered in Greece, and then these people took the icon, unfortunately, and that's he's a martyr, yeah. So, anyway, so.
There was an interesting episode when the Council of Bishops of Russian Orthodox Church elected him to be a bishop. He came, I think, from seminary to Belgrade to tell them that they made a mistake, It's not me, it's somebody else.
Yes.
And they told him, no, it's you. And he went back to seminary and he told them, the mistake is much bigger.
Much bigger. It was me.
He was a very modest man.
Well, of course, today we celebrate Saint Simeon. You know about it. But we also had holy man, and I believe our saint is Saint Patriarch Pavle, right? Patriarch Pavle came in a year before to San Francisco, and he actually asked priests to honor and to say a prayer in front of the Saint John. So he is the first one who mentioned Saint John officially as a patriarch. So they knew that except they didn't know that his whole body was preserved. His relics was underneath the church. But yes, the interesting thing is several weeks or maybe a couple of months before St. John passed away, you couldn't bury anybody in U.S. and at least in California, except if it's in a seminary, right? But when he passed away, they passed a law that actually you can do that. So they put his body underneath the church. That's another miracle. So we could really talk for a long time on how many miracles he performed and what he did, and
Yes, it was wonder worker.
wonder
As I
worker.
can see, we have Brother Nectarios from Mexico.
Oh,
Yes, watching this lecture using Skype. So maybe he would like to pose a question.
I was just saying that thanks to Father Oliver to inviting me to your talk. I didn't get to hear everything about Saint John, but I did hear the rest of your story that is in connection to Saint John, and I thought it was very beautiful and it's very heartwarming to hear about it. And well, I guess I just had like a brief question, not necessarily about Saint John, but did you have when you were in the United States, did you see any veneration about regarding Jose Munoz?
No, I didn't. He unfortunately didn't. So I had opportunity to meet him in person when he was alive, but no, I didn't. Veneration, no. They actually they are icons of who's Jose Munoz. Yes, they make icons.
Yes, I've seen some. And
Yes.
I think he's buried in the seminary of Holy Trinity Monastery in Jordanville.
Yes, in Jordanville. True.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And was he buried in the seminary because of some kind of law in New York, or
No.
in relation to California?
I don't think so. I don't think so. He was because he was closely connected with the Russian Orthodox Church. That's the only thing. Yes.
Right. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your story. That was great.
Thank you for spending time and being with us.
Maybe
Yes,
for,
thank you.
for the end, one question from Russia, because that was his native country.
America forced
Okay.
me here. You joke yourself.
Maybe America and Russia.
Okay, you represent us both, really.
I
Well,
don't
this-
know what to ask, really. I mean, no, it's very interesting to listen. I was blessed to be part of, there's a parish in DC, St. John's, that St. John Maximovich, it's named after St. John the Baptist, but he laid the cornerstone of the church. So he evidently founded many churches around the US and Canada in his time, and so I've known about him for many years. And then, as Father mentioned, the mission in Hong Kong, which they've been trying for years to reopen a church
In Shanghai.
in Shanghai,
Yeah.
the church, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of China still only
Yes.
recognizes Catholicism
Yeah.
as Christianity. So, but the priest of that church of the mission was my first spiritual father. So that's how I
Oh.
first heard
Oh, that's wonderful.
of St. John. So it's a very touching story, and I see it's almost as though you've touched all the you were there at the right time, and I kind of got there late, for different
Yeah.
at different places, So I didn't know Jose, but one of my good friends, he went to St. John's in DC, that same church, and
That's
a good
wonderful.
friend of mine has one of those icons because Jose was the godfather of his two boys. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
he's got an icon of him. So it's quite interesting. It's like I almost met.
And in 2014 there was 20 years of canonization of Saint John. So I was there. I mentioned to you I got a job on that particular day. But then last year I was also in the U.S. and I was driving through U.S. and I came to a little bit north of San Francisco. I met my friend. It's called San Rafael.
Yeah.
We met there, we had lunch, and we said, great, you came on time, but why didn't you call me to make a reservation? I said, for what, So, well, tomorrow is 30 years of St. John. Oh my God, I completely forgot, Of course, I would read every day, but, somehow I missed it. And anyway, I was in the 30 years of canonization of St. John, so
Yeah.
the last year as well.
It's fascinating. I mean, I noticed, I just remembered again when you said his birthday, because it coincided with my grandmother's birthday, like she was born at the same time. So I always thought that was interesting reading his life, because you think of him as being this ancient kind of character, like from another time.
Yeah.
And you know, to have known someone that, you know, that I grew up around, that was born at the same time, makes you think, wow, you again, it's somebody that you could have interacted with.
Yeah. That's true. So
They saw the same things.
You know what you know, when I speak with St. John, people usually ask me, tell me about the miracles regarding St. John. I said, well, we can talk about the miracles, but you know, St. John, I'm sure he's listening to us right now, and he's expecting some miracles from us as well. And very simple miracles, which is he's expecting us to have prayers in the morning, in the evening, not to judge anybody, just the basic stuff, and he would be very happy. So it goes both ways. So that's something I believe. Okay.
Okay, Brother Branislav, thank you for this inspiring lecture.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for attending this lecture, and I would like to thank to Television Hram for covering this event. So we will continue this collaboration or in field of mission. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
God bless you.